Greetings, brothers and sisters, and other Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies. We'll get to Madam Expiration Date in just a moment. Um, so I had my own kind of um, apocalyptic thing going on here. My wife and I went outside. We go outside to do work or walk, and this is like 2 days ago. And we noticed the sky was very dim, like dingy. Very. It wasn't cloudy, but the light wasn't very good. And we wondered if there was a wildfire nearby. Sometimes people burn things or whatever. And uh, we realized the whole sky was like that. So I checked my phone, and there's a airquality.now by the government puts out this thing. And there's, a green, a yellow, orange, a red, and a purple, and then sort of like a um, a I don't know, a maroonish red. I don't know. And we were in the purple, which is over 200 particulates, um, and I was quite shocked at how bad it was. Right, and we could kind of smell it. And we looked up, and it's the Canadian fires, which seems odd. And I had all this work to do outside, and the next 2 days it's been unbelievably, not good outside. Poor air quality. And, I just, I wanted to get things done, and there was nice days. And, there's always issues when you've got projects on the homestead, equipment breaking down, or rain, or not enough rain, or, like if you're going, there's always things, right? There's always things going on that delay what you're doing, that interrupt the flow of the work that you're doing. And this was a real bummer. And, going outside and walking and taking advantage of the summer temperatures, all these things. And so, it persisted, and it's not as bad today. It's gone from purple to red, but it's still, dingy out there. And I thought it rained last night, but maybe it didn't. But it's just a real bummer. And during this process, I started watching I completed watching the Rings of Power on Amazon, which is a prequel to the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of the Lord of the Rings, which is, I believe my favorite books. I read those books multiple times when I was in high school, maybe in college. Certainly in high school, I read them more than once. And then we read them as a family. One of the last things that my family did together, sort of a homeschool activity before my family fell apart. And we were hiking in the Blue Ridge Mountains when we read the books out loud. My ex read them. And I was, stunned at how good they were, even as now as an adult. And, they're, I don't know, there's just something great about those books for those of us who love them. And, the movies weren't so great. The first movie, Fellowship of the Ring, was the best of the best. But even they left things out. There was this librarian who was sort of a nerd. People who do those live action role play type of things, people who dress up or whatever in costume. And she was telling us this story that she and a couple of her friends went to the Fellowship of the Ring at the movies, and they were dressed up in character, right? And I forget what she was, but her two friends, it was a couple, dressed up as Tom Bombadil and his wife. I forget the wife's name. Very famous characters, and they were completely left out of the movie, right? uh, and so there were people who were bummed by some of the editing choices, but movies, unless they're done like what they're doing here with this Rings of Power, like they should have made a trilogy with each movie, with each book, to get all the stuff in there. It's better now that they could do these sort of movie-like series that are streamed. But the Lord of the Rings movies faded and got goofy at each one got a little bit worse because they had to leave more and more things out, and they started making things up that weren't in the books and things like this. But I'd heard bad things about the Rings of Power, but I thought it was quite well done. Like, I was surprised. There's some woke stuff in there, just like all thing, but it's a lot better than I thought it would be. And these weren't based in books. There was a sort of a history encyclopedia type thing that J.R. Tolkien. I don't know that much about it, but it's called the Silmarillion. So there's information about things that happened before the stories, and there was characters that were referenced in the books, or characters that the elves lived for thousands of years, and it gets into their origin stories. And like I said, they took their time with it. It's probably about 10 hours of content for one aspect of the Rings of Power story. But I was actually impressed that they put together a good show. And the thing I want to talk about here is this spoiler alert. But towards the end, one of the last 2 or 3 episodes, there is an event that happens involving a volcano, and things seem to be going the good guy's way, right? And then things turned in a moment's notice, and you know what's going to happen. That's what's tough about these prequel stories. Like, the ending, but they even did a good job at keeping some mysteries, and there are a couple of characters that you didn't know who they were until the last episode. But they turned it into Mordor. The area, right, was habitable land. And now the orcs, the goblins, whatever they're, these creatures, could come out during the day because they destroyed the environment. It was now dark and smoky, and the trees were all dead, and like a nuclear bomb went off, and they ruined this land. And one of the characters is talking to a young person. We got to go back and take that land. The person who used to live there, human. This elf character, one of the main characters of the show, Galadriel, who's in the other books and movies, says no. They've turned this into something that they can inhabit. These evil creatures, right? And I talked about this in my book, The Choice, as a possibility that the best way to invade a planet is to incarnate in as souls. Like, you'd have a bunch of souls come in from another, planetary, whatever it is, as human beings. And those souls would inhabit the planet and wreck it. Like, let's say there was a planet of alien beings that they had nuclear war. Like, they had survived nuclear war. So their bodies had become adapted to an environment that had a high level of radiation, and they couldn't survive on a planet like Earth that's clean and pure. So they would have to come in here some way and raise the level of radiation and change the environment to be like their environment. So what you would do is incarnate as souls. I mean, that's the best way to invade a country anyway, instead of a world anyway. Space travel is difficult, whatever. Mobilizing armies, this just from planet Earth. Imagine having to mobilize armies from galaxies away or whatever it is. And so, it's a theory that I floated out there, ideas that came to me, that the best way to change to invade would be soul energy. And then you could change the planet into the atmosphere, and you could through sabotage. So I had this idea that that's what was happening now. There are human beings here that are willfully destroying the environment and making it into some toxic planet like their homeworld, which is this played out in the Lord of the Rings, where they did this, where they changed the environment to make it inhabitable to these evil, gross, dark creatures, right? And, it's just a thought. Because, we've entered into a time now all of a sudden. It happened, just like that, snap of the fingers, where you can't go outside. You have to check the air quality. And the way the air moves around the earth, there could be like just this pockets of toxic air post nuclear war, post whatever, things that happened that float around the world. Like the air will not be good like it is now everywhere. And then there'll be just deadly air that you just can't go outside. I mean, there'll be a time where people have to live underground or whatever and losing the ability to go outside, right? I mean, that's happening now anyway by choice with all these young people growing up on the internet. But imagine, not being able to breathe fresh air and go for walks and interact with nature and go to the beach and go to the mountains and, do these things because the air is too toxic and the environment is poisonous. And there are various post-apocalyptic books and, book series and movies and things that, cover this as a world where air is. I talk about this in the follow-up book to my choice, the choice of the air quality, that the air quality is going to be something where people aren't going to have the luxury of the quality, the clean air that we have now, even with pollution and even with all the things that have made it not as good as it was, say, 100 years ago, that there'll be times where, in the future where people will have to either wear some sort of, gas masks or not go outside at all or whatever it is. And, this is like a sort of taste of that, right? These people, anybody who's suffered from this Canadian wildfire, and apparently everyone has, it's never happened before. Like there's never been a time where there have been fires in Canada, which I consider not a dry place, where there's a lot of moisture there. And, we get a lot of air from the north and, the west and the north. And all of a sudden they had these wildfire problems that are, contaminating the air here in America. And, you can't go outside. These two things were going on at the same time. I was watching this TV show at the same time as, we were suffering from this in a real way. The toxification of our environment. But anyways, with that cheery news, let's get to Jaime, Foxx, and Madonna here. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to add to this. For those of us who question the official story, and there's lots of us, everyone does this on some level. People realize that the people in power have a tendency to lie, and it's just how far you're willing to go in your own mind to think about like what evils they're capable of, right? Like what things that most people would find morally reprehensible, well, the people who control the system or people in general do. And it's hard for people to imagine the evil people depopulating, killing millions upon millions of people or ruining the planet or these things, right? But for those of us who question the official story, we see that the people who run the system are capable of anything. Like they have no moral compass at all. And, there's people in the truth community that just suck. Remedial people, newbies, people without the ability for abstract thought and, people who still do the black and white binary thinking. And for them, everything is done by the controllers, what I call the controllers. When something happens, oh, that's the government, that's the, whatever. And they'll find information that supports this idea. But as you mature into this, you realize some of these events are organic. And by giving the controllers that much power, that they're responsible for every evil, every bad thing that happens, you're minimizing the divine role and you're giving these guys more power than they actually have. And so I've talked about this as well. But when something happens like these fires and it's affecting us all who are, all across the United States, there's some level of toxicity, toxic smoke coming from Canada. Now, if it's just organic, there's going to be, just in an organic fire, there are carcinogens and there's, things that are not good for you. But if there's something they're doing intentionally and they're burning things or they're putting things into the atmosphere that are there to poison us, and that's completely in the realm of possibilities, right? There's a depopulation agenda here, then we have to at least assume that's a possibility, that this isn't just ordinary wildfire, forest fire smoke, that there might be other things in it that are very nefarious. And we can stay inside, and it depends on the air quality in your house or apartment, the airflow, the filters you have, and minimize its effect on you. But for people like us, so we have chickens, and we're going to eat the chicken's eggs. We could throw out the chicken's eggs for the next couple of days or whatever. But it might take a lot longer. Particulates, they'll settle into the grass. And so it could be a month from now. And this is what happens, like, say, when there's nuclear radiation leakage in power plants or, atomic bombs, whatever, nuclear bombs. There are particles that will land in the grass. And they might not, be immediate, but cows will come and eat the grass. And all these nuclear particles end up going right to the cow's udders, for example. So if there's a nuclear event, you just can't drink milk anymore. Like, even though, and I don't know about cheese and all these other things. And like, this is the world that we're, possibly living in. So these eggs that my family and I get from our chickens that are healthy and they're free ranging and they're, outdoors all day, but they're outdoors all day breathing this air. Of course, they're low to the ground and, who knows what they're getting or not. But this is what we're looking at. You understand this, that when something like this happens, it may be organic, it might not. And then if it isn't, what are they putting in the air and how's it going to affect us? And, when do we have to, it's just all this stuff I would talk about, the exhausting aspect of having to read the ingredients all the time. Because the people who run the system and the deception that's led to this point, that they can't, be honest and upfront about things, is prevalent in anything that happens, whether we're aware of it or not, right? All this toxic material entering our environment, trains collapsing or crashing, and, all these things. But anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, so we'll get into the Madonna Madam expiration date and Pete Davidson also having issues next. Those will be the next two things I cover here. But this is, a Google search I'm taking down. Jamie Foxx blind blood clot. And back on June 7th, so this is like 3.5 weeks ago, is the latest story. I have the news tab open here. That unsubstantiated claim that Jamie Foxx was hospitalized because of the boop. So I'm just going to take that one down. It's taking up space here. But I'm leaving up this one that just is Jamie Foxx. And so there's been a couple of stories here. The first one here is John Boyega gives health update on Jamie Foxx. He finally picked up the phone. And he says here, he finally picked up the phone. Thank you, bro. And then he says that he's doing well. And then, we are just giving him the privacy and we can't wait for his return. I gave him well wishes directly and I gave him all the well wishes. So I'm just going to be waiting until he comes back out there. So take your time, Jamie. We love you, bro. So doing well means what? Because then there was this on page 6. Jamie Foxx, not himself, as he slowly recovers after hospitalization report, says that he's still not himself. Well, we know that because he hasn't been out in the public now in 2 months. Like, he could be dead or in a coma. This guy said he talked to him. So, he could have blood clots and be blind, though. He's getting the best care and working hard to recover right now, but he's still not himself. He has the tightest circle around him. So this person told People magazine. So this all confirms that he had a epic collapse, that he almost died, and he may never be what he was before health-wise. And if you throw in that he might have had the boop right before that all happened, the boop, then we'll see. So then there was Madonna. Madonna hospitalized in ICU with bacterial infection. And so Madam Expiration Date has taken a step towards expiring. Madonna hospitalized for serious bacterial infection, halts tour, full recovery expected. Another person here. And, I knew I was going to put out a short video yesterday saying I knew about this already because I got, 30 or so people telling me. And I haven't looked through the comments, so it'll be even more. Usually I'll know right when something like this happens. It would be bad if nobody told me because, I might miss something. But when it happens, when the news breaks, if you want to send out something, sure. But if it's like a day late and it's something this big, there's no reason to notify me because, Mom already been aware of it, right? If it's something of this scale that's being covered in mainstream media. Rosie O'Donnell shares update on Madonna Madam Expiration Date amid serious hospitalization. Rosie O'Donnell shares a positive update about Madonna's health following the Queen of Pop's hospitalization of serious bacterial infection. The now and then actress shared an old photo of herself and her longtime pal doing yoga poses on the now defunct Rosie O'Donnell show on Instagram. And she's feeling good, Madonna love. Glad to hear that, Rosie. Thanks for the update. God save the Queen. This is the apocalypse and everything you need to know. The page 6 thing, I wanted to read a little bit about the bacterial infection here. And Madonna was found unresponsive and rushed to New York City Hospital Saturday. So does that mean she had cardiac arrest? She passed out? Unresponsive. So they couldn't wake her up. And they rushed her to the hospital. And so developed a serious bacterial infection, which led to a several-day stay in the ICU. Now, it's been a couple of days, but, it takes sometimes 3 months for them to come up with a cause of death. And they're cutting open a body, and they're determining what happened, right? And, maybe they detected a bacterial infection that caused all this, but, what does that mean? Where did it come from? Has her immune system been compromised by something, right? And so they rush out. Like, we still don't know what's wrong with Jamie Foxx, but we have a full diagnosis of Madam Expiration Date. Madonna was strenuously rehearsing for her tour ahead of the health crisis. She put in 12-hour days. Well, that's it. Like, exercise is now bad for you. And so, people are getting heart attacks from exercise. We covered my last video about this stuff. And so here she is with the Madam Expiration Date eye patch on. Right? And so, a lot of these performers, we know with Justin Bieber, we know with that other dude, I just covered him, whatever his name is, Shawn Mendes, and so many other, there's been all these drummers who have died, and so many, I can't even remember them all, have canceled concerts. Some of them indefinitely. We, of course, know about Celine Dion. And so Madonna had this big concert, and all of a sudden she's, found in a coma, like unresponsive in her house or whatever, and rushed to the hospital. Kathy Griffin blast trolls making fun of Madonna's hospitalization, blames ageism and misogyny.
I don't know what's going on with Madonna. I don't know, but I love her and I want to defend her. I have never met her.
She doesn't know what's going on with Madonna, but she loves her. You love her? You love Madonna? You love her? I never met her, but I love her. And I want to defend her because, no one's paying attention to me. I've got multiple cancers myself. I've, been hated by so many people because of my obnoxious personality. But I love her.
I've seen her in concert, of course, because I'm a gay man. And
Kaboom.
I think she has provided the world with decades of music and entertainment.
Yeah, that she has provided the world with decades of music and entertainment in air quotes. None of it good, right? Like she's not a good singer. Her songs, like I don't know, maybe a couple. I mean, none of the Madonna songs are on like my. I don't have any of them on my phone. And if they were good songs, I would have them on there, right? I got a couple of Taylor Swift songs on my phone, Selena Gomez. I mean, if a song is something I like, I'll put it on my phone, despite, what the person's like or how much I dislike the person entertainer. If I like the music, I like the music, right? I'll acknowledge something that's good. And just because I make fun of Madonna, like I don't hate her, I don't, if she put out quality music, I would listen to it. I'd say this is a good song. I don't care about that stuff. Like I don't take those things. I acknowledge something that's quality. Madonna hasn't put out anything quality. She's good at getting attention. She was good at being outrageous, and she was good at doing things, sensationalistic things to bring attention to herself. But I don't know the live performances, which I would never go to anyway. I don't go to concerts. Don't like that energy. There's no, that's not for me. But who knows how you would evaluate her live performances? The level of demonic energy, the level of creepiness, the level of wanting to take a shower afterwards. Do some spiritual cleaning.
And let's, Evita film performances, but I don't like how people are like already piling on and sort of making fun of her being obviously quite ill or collapsed and she'll be fine. We don't know anything yet. But I'm
She brought any kind of negativity on herself for being sensationalistic, and she's been pretty hostile, and she's been whatever. Madonna has been one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, bringing in Hollywood morality.
to be honest, I think a lot of it is ageism and misogyny. Sorry, but as a 62-year-old chick, I deal with it all the time, and she's
Yeah, maybe it's your personality. Have you ever thought about it's your personality? Like your personality is off-putting to people. The positions you take, your voice being annoying, holding Trump's head up, his severed head when he had so many people who loved him and things like that. Same thing with Madam Expiration Date. You guys have brought all this stuff on yourself. If you don't realize that people aren't going to like you, and some of it's them and their suckiness, but you're not likable, right?
Madonna. So I don't care about her fillers. They're going to go away if she feels like it or not. I care about her health, and I'm glad she can go back on this tour. And the tour is the greatest hits, and she should be great.
Madonna postpones tour after intensive care stay, so we don't know when their tour is coming back on. We'll see how that all develops, right? Then there was this guy. Then there's this guy, Pete Davidson, in rehab after struggling with borderline personality disorder, PTSD, sources said. This guy's been self-medicating forever. He's suicidal, and he's just, he puts the G into ghoul. And now he has gone into treatment centers like so many of these other people. He told Kanye to go on the meds. Remember, I covered that. Got into it with Kanye before the whole Kim Kardashian thing on Saturday Night Live when Kanye had what they considered a meltdown when he was a musical guest. And Pete Davidson did a thing where he said, you should take your meds. Pete Davidson is someone who self-medicates but also is on pharmaceutical drugs because he is, a ghoul and has, twisted internal world and a personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, these other things. And so, he's going to be in and out of treatment just like Hunter Biden and these other people until he finally ghouls it out completely and whatever that happens. Former Arkansas NFL QB Ryan Mallett dies in apparent drowning. Sheriff's office said that first responders were called to a beach in Destin, Florida around 2 a.m. as a group of people swimming in the Gulf of Mexico near a sandbar struggled to make their way back to shore One of the individuals, later identified with Mallett, was not breathing when he was pulled out of the water and was transported to the local hospital when he was pronounced dead. So they might have been drunk and they might have swam to a sandbar that disappeared when high tide came in, and they had to swim, possibly, I don't know, not against the tide because tide would be coming in, but a longer way, or the tide went out and they were swimming against the whatever happened there. It was easier for them to swim out than it was to swim back. It was in the middle of the night, and he either got tired or his heart gave out or whatever else. And, maybe it's a heart issue. This guy was a former NFL player, someone was an athlete, and now he's dead. Actor Julian Sands, 65, confirmed dead after going missing on a winter hike in California. Doesn't look like he's the epitome of health here. He was in A Room with a View and the Warlock horror movies. And I don't know. Manner of death is still under investigation pending further test results. So that happened. Janitor attempting to turn off beeping noise destroys a decade of scientific research, causes $1 million in damages. And so this guy, a janitor cleaning a laboratory at the University of Troy, New York, is accused of damaging at least $1 million in scientific research after shutting off the storage freezer while trying to turn off a constant beeping noise. So the guy got irritated by a constant beeping noise. When the cleaner shut off the circuit breaker on June 17, 2020, the freezer storing cell culture samples and other research elements at minus 112 degrees Fahrenheit, the temperature reportedly rose to minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit after the freezer was turned off, damaging or destroying all of the contents of the Lloyd's lawsuit alleges. And those contents were worth apparently $1 million. And now, okay, so I'm in the editing process here, and we'll get to this Kylie Jenner thing in a second. But, I was originally thinking when somebody sent me this like 2 days ago, that what if this was a biological weapon? Now, I don't know if any of these stories are true. I take everything here with a little laughter, a grain of salt, whatever you want to say. I don't take it that seriously, but let's say these were biological weapons or something in there, and this guy who was annoyed by a beeping sound ends up, not being trained properly that this is, whatever it is, right? I mean, whatever is in there that's worth $1 million, it could be possibly deadly, possibly whatever it is, right? And let's say he turned something off in a lab that led to some sort of biological weapon being leaked out into the building. Gets into the vents, goes throughout the building, people get it, they go on planes, next thing you know, kaboom, right? And it shows you how these things are not foolproof. I mean, that's just an example of, how something like that could happen. When you mess around with dangerous things, dopes like Homer Simpsons are going to come into contact with them. And, when they do, this kind of stuff's going to happen. So here is this girl, Kendall Jenner. They're talking about her diaper, her poofy diaper, this. Look at her walk. Look at her do this. She's good at walking. She's good at walking and looking like she's got an attitude. I saw this on New York Post, and one of my viewers sent me this actual thing. She's getting, destroyed on the internet for. She's the skinny one in the family. She does the modeling. But she didn't choose this outfit, like just whatever it is, right? But or horrible people. Japanese sea turns venomous shade of red, alarming residents. A Japanese sea known for its often clear waters turned into a gruesome shade of red after a beer factory sprung a leak. Residents of the city of Nago on the island of Okinawa woke up to find the port area looking rather venomous. There it is there. Because of beer factory, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's Fukushima. South Dakota State Rep calls Mount Rushmore a Freemasonic shrine, demonic porthole for communism, and his revelation came from the Lord. Here's what he said here.
Go back and do some history on Mount Rushmore. It actually is a Freemason shrine. It was called a shrine all the way in the back in the newspapers. It was spoken about for what it was. Just like Crazy Horse Mountain. The guy who did that was a Mason as well.
So this guy seems to be part Native American. He has Cherokee Nation there, which I don't think Cherokee people live in South Dakota. But he's saying these things here. He made the outlandish comments during the appearance on Now Is the Time. But it isn't outlandish to call this they're all Freemasons, right? I think all the 4 people up there, except for Jefferson, who's Freemasonic friendly. So we know Washington was a Freemason. I'm not sure about Lincoln. Is that Roosevelt? I don't know. But at least Washington, definitely Freemason. Is this Jefferson here? I'm not sure who these guys are. There's Washington and Lincoln. I think that's Roosevelt. I think that's Jefferson, but not sure. Jefferson was Freemasonic friendly. He hung out with all the Freemasons. He wasn't confirmed, but he was, a sympathizer. And I could find out about Lincoln and whatever. I don't care. Interesting take. And, they're dismissing this as crazy. U.S. ill-prepared for global pandemic, outgoing CDC chief warns. She was grilled in the Senate. I didn't get a chance to cover it. Walensky. She was, in between her bouts with COVID personally. Right? She says we're not, another one. We're not going to be ready for the next one that's guaranteed to come because we had one, we're going to have another one. They just know. Flesh-eating trank drug leads to 150 ODs, 9 deaths in opioid-ravaged Florida County. We've covered trank before. We've covered fentanyl. We've covered stupidity. We've covered it all. Tom Hanks' niece got kicked off a reality show, and her exit was absolutely bonkers. So there's a reality show. I saw it advertised that these were all famous celebrities' relatives. And I think what they do is give clues. I haven't seen the show. They give clues, and when the other celebrities figure out who you're related to, you are kicked off. And so it sounds kind of stupid. But this is Tom Hanks' niece, and this is one of the first shows. And apparently, she didn't think it was fair. She's fake crying. That's fake crying. I'm crying for real.
And just like that,
I'm crying for real.
12 has become 11. Congratulations. You are that much closer.
I think that's one of the Jonas Brothers. The one you don't know his name.
The grand prize of $100,000.
They only get $100,000.
Good night, everybody. Get some rest.
It's like $40,000 after taxes.
Do a whole boy. Damn.
These freaking clues are so freaking obvious.
Those clues were so obvious. So her clues, she felt were more obvious than the other people's.
Freaking bench. That's a freaking poster of the freaking Forrest Gump. Are you kidding me?
She's screaming, she's screaming, she's screaming, she's screaming.
Why a bench? Why a bench? There's literally no reference to benches on any other movie. Even Gabriel found that out. He's not even smart.
For real?
Gabriel, this must be Gabriel. He said even Gabriel figured out who she was. And he's not even.
That's cold.
I didn't even get to do any challenges.
She didn't get to do any challenges.
I did not have that level of drama for the first guess off on my claim to fame bingo card.
don't deserve this. I should have more camera time. I should
Exactly. She should have more camera time.
be here longer.
And we're only on guess off number 1.
I think the right choice was made.
So Tom Hanks has a lot of questionable relatives, including his wife, his son, and now his niece, and of course him himself, right? Okay, continuing on here, this is a breaking story, and I wanted to talk about this anyway. I've been talking a little bit about this. When you favor one group over another, right? And so it says Supreme Court strikes down college affirmative action programs. The ruling is a culmination of decades-long effort to end the consideration of race in admissions.
On the air with breaking news, the Supreme Court has just issued a pair of opinions in closely watched cases involving
How come she's got like reptile lips?
affirmative action in college.
You know, when I point these things out, like I don't care about appearance as much as I care about alien, they live ghoulish. You know, when there's something that's like not right. Like this is not like a physical deformity, but a condition of famous people who, you know, they are supposed to be good looking, but there's like some kind of they live thing going on here, like a skull-like alien here.
Admissions at the University of North Carolina as well as Harvard University, and has struck down those policies as unconstitutional. I want to turn to Laura Jarrett, our senior legal correspondent. And Laura, you and I are both doing a version of speed read here on a very complex pair of cases, but it does seem to me very clear that these affirmative action programs by these two universities have been struck down. Many people thought, Laura, the court would outright overrule prior decisions that allow for affirmative action in certain conditions. And it's unclear to me that this opinion goes that far. How do you see it?
That's exactly right. We have
Exactly right, Savannah. You nailed it.
a major decision here as it relates to race and education in this country. And as you said, for decades, the court has said that you can look at race as a limited plus factor, a tip, if you will, not any checking the box exercise. And here, in this case, a divided court has said the programs at Harvard and the University of North Carolina are invalid. Now, those are important because those are ones that many schools base their programs on. And so the upshot here for schools as they try to sort their way through what is a deeply divided court, an opinion spanning over 200 pages here, is to try to sort through what exactly is left. It's clear.
So they're getting rid of affirmative action, which I'll cover at the end of this video. FBI and SEC respond to complaints about Twitter audio star Mario Nawfal, who had rapidly gained online fame and been boosted by Elon Musk, denied any wrongdoing. Well, just from this picture alone, it looks like wrongdoing is afoot. He's an international blockchain consultant, and he's an entrepreneur who has emerged in recent months as one of Twitter's biggest audio stars. So it says here, Long said he reported Nawfal to the U.S. consulate in Calgary and the FBI and Securities Exchange Commission in December. He said the entrepreneur embezzled funds from a company where he previously was CEO and openly discussed tax evasion in conversations with him. So that happened, that guy. Jada Pinkett Smith introduced psychedelic drugs to her whole family. Kaboom! Yes, now it all makes sense. You know, that family likes to party. Here, unrecognizable Daniel Day-Lewis. Look at this guy. We'll go back to this here in a sec here. Seen using crutches in rare outing. The guy, you know, maybe he just let himself go gray. He's got some weird tattoos. He's got a hand, looks like a child's hand on his arm. And people are taking pictures of him. He's got hands on either arm. Whatever. He's, you know, just another Hollywood freak. Real Housewives of California, I assume. Star Emily Simpson admits to using Ozempic. Here she is here. And liposuction to lose weight.
really depressed me. I knew that I had gained weight. I didn't like the way I looked. So I went to the doctor. I did a full blood panel. I had my cholesterol was high. I have 0 testosterone. I was pre-diabetic.
I wouldn't say you have 0. Looks like you have quite a bit there, pumpkin.
So, sorry. She actually said, why don't you do a semaglutide, which is Ozempic. So I did. I did that in December.
For 1 month?
For 1 month. And, that was a great kickstart for me. I'm just going to say that's for me. It worked amazing.
Worked amazing. This is what she looked before. That's what she looks like after. Except she's only got 6 months to live. Her kid there, hamming it up. This is a known entity. Like Ozempic, any pharmaceutical drug. I mean, I don't do pharmaceuticals. I would, consider it, but at this point, I just don't believe in them. Just to be clear about what I'm saying here, I'm in the editing process. And I can't really do pharmaceutical medications. Like, I guess I could, I can do, some sort of, something for infection, some sort of, I guess, what do they call those things? Antibiotics, right? My mom was allergic to antibiotics. She was on them all the time, though. And they are hard on my stomach, some of them worse than others. If I had to or something like that. I mean, I can't even do Advil. Maybe if I was in severe pain, I was on this Oxycontin for a week when I had an operation, and I just had to get off of it. It was wreaking havoc on my system. It was brutal. So, in terms of my future with allopathic medicine and, pharmaceuticals, I just don't see it, right? If I have to be on 8 pharmaceuticals to keep myself alive when I'm 80, I'm just not going to do it. It's just not for me. But something like Ozempic, just a no-brainer, because it's not life-saving, right? It's just to lose weight. And yeah, losing weight is good, but there's multiple ways to do it. Why take something that's got, a horrible reputation for side effects in the pharmaceutical industry, which is known for them? And so, she's one of these superficial plastic surgery, Hollywood rich wife thing. They do this stuff here. And, again, she's had probably multiple surgeries. And so for her, taking a poisonous drug is just par for the course. Ron DeSantis said he would eliminate 4 agencies if he elected president. I usually would cover this on my other channel, but I got a whole bunch of articles I haven't gotten to in about a week for some reason. But he wants to get rid of the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, and the IRS. And again, big government and this idea that government overreach and these things is big in the Republican Party. And I agree with that, but go to countries, I don't know if he's trying to get rid of the EPA, which would be, some of these guys said they wanted to do that. And you take away these federal, oversight, even though they're corrupt and they're all these things. There's, you said, we talked about draining the swamp. I think a better analogy is breaking the swamp. We saw that yesterday. So I don't know about getting rid of the IRS, what that would do. I mean, in terms of, that sounds great until, there's no federal money for the federal government, right? How would he tax people because taxes are necessary? Without taxes, they can't keep up the illusion that someday we might pay back our bills, which we won't. But you go to countries that don't have a environmental protection agency or some of these other agencies, and corruption and violation and corporate crime is rampant. So not that I love these agencies or love the federal government, but there's a reason for some of these things, right? Corruption's afoot no matter what. Biden's brother, president, is very open-minded about psychedelics for medical treatment. Kaboom! We knew he had something going on there. Surprising new details about Ryan Mallett's death as harrowing body cam video released. Riptides didn't factor into the apparent drowning of quarterback, Florida authorities said Wednesday, as they released body cam footage of an officer rushing to the tragic scene. Mallett, 35, still pretty young, swimming in the Gulf of Mexico and the Panhandle. Destin Beach, where they have a lot of, the Panhandle, the Gulf of Mexico has lots of sandbars. I went there as a kid. I usually was on the other side of Florida. But there was no riptides, and so I don't know what they're saying. But he probably just had a heart attack. I would guess there's a chance he just had a heart attack, right? Okay, so I looked into it, and there was no yellow flag. There was a yellow flag that said caution, but that's kind of common in these beaches. Very seldom there's a green flag. There was no riptides. You could see that it looked like it was low tide and was pretty calm. It's calmer there in the Gulf of Mexico than on the other side in the Atlantic Ocean. And so they just either ran out of gas. It was in the middle of the day before I read that article. It seemed like it was in the middle of the night, but maybe I misread that. But it was obviously, during the day, everyone was watching what's happening. They probably swam out pretty far and either got tired or, the guy just had a cardiac arrest or something, right? And we'll see about that as it comes, full circle. So on my phone, I don't like the Apple News. People send me stuff on Apple News, and I have the app, but I think you got to pay for it. And it's just like, what I do here. It's not really an advantage. But they had an article that said California is in a state of crisis. And this is here, Vanity Fair. Can anyone fix California? California, Biden has declared state of emergency and border sewage crisis in California City. California population declines again as the state grapples with housing crisis. And so California is a mess, right? And I forgot about this. Study reveals root causes of California homelessness. They're just an absolute mess. And people are abandoning the state. But then there was this. San Francisco deploys National Guard in fight against drug zombies, but deals are happening in the streets. And so this is the National Guard, which is, a form of martial law. That's a branch of the military. The National Guard are weekend warriors, people who are ordinary citizens that are a part of like a military emergency crew, that is trained in various things to do with civilian life. And it's a branch of the military. And they're bringing the National Guard in to fight against fentanyl addiction and, whatever that stuff was called. They just talked about it here. But, and we know that there's all these lawlessness there. And the police are, they're trying to, capitulate with these various groups and not piss them off, which we heard in that testimony of that girl, Riley Gaines. And so it's California just, some of you guys live there. I don't know if it's just as bad as they're saying or, whatever. I mean, it depends on what neighborhood you live in, but it seems like it's falling apart. What the heck did Biden have strapped on his face that made these marks this morning? So I covered this yesterday on my other channel, and I was looking at these things, wondering what was happening. Remember, he was acting weird. He was kind of drooling. And, I was going to say, did he have a retainer on? It was like his teeth were coming out, or he was, he wasn't talking, he doesn't talk great normally, and he was worse. And he had this thing on his face. Whatever, just weird.
All right, so look, this is pretty alarming. We've talked about this before. NASA is working right now to prevent an internet apocalypse.
Say it ain't so, Brandon.
So this guy, a bunch of my viewers point out, he has some pigmentation problem. Michael Jackson's claimed to have this disease. A couple of people I know, Indian people who do my meditation, had it. One of the preceptors, really nice guy, where people lost their pigmentation. And people commented, I didn't notice. I guess I noticed a little bit there.
Oh, Brandon.
I would like to say it isn't, but NASA is saying that this is a possibility. They actually launched a probe 5 years ago which went close to the surface of the sun, and they're just now getting back some data. They're concerned that a solar storm could cause a worldwide internet blackout for months, even years. So those.
This is the whole EMP, the solar flare taking down, with the poles reversing themselves and the magnetic field being down, which protects us from these solar flares that act as an EMP and wipe out either the electrical grid or, in this case, internet, Elon Musk satellite internet. I mean, all these things. I've talked about this in the past. Okay, so this video went really long. They're just long every day. There's so much stuff to cover. I don't get to all of it usually. So I just wanted to comment on affirmative action. First, though, my wife sent me a tweet. It's gotten better. The air quality has gotten better outside. But this is from a person, I don't know if this was a tweet or maybe she sent it an email, I guess. Let me go find my email. And so this is entitled Toxic Air. I measured the air in the city this guy lives in, close to where we are. You are smelling SO2 and H2S, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide. Both are very nasty and very deadly. I measured them in concentration of up to 6 ppm H25s and up to 3 ppm 502s. This should never happen. So I'm going to look up this guy's Twitter and see if this person is like a conspiracy theorist, a truther or whatever, or a person who just measures air, right? Like sometimes people are just into that, and if he's the second, it's a lot more believable. Not that the first isn't believable, but I don't even know what this means. I went out and did a little bit of work, and I felt okay, but I'm just very wary of it, and I have some things to do. It's getting better now. It's better than it was this morning. There's this air.gov, air.now, air now, whatever it is, that measures the particulates. But I've been suspecting that they're putting something in the air because, it seems like they want to reduce the population, whatever it is. And, which just sucks. And so, that is whatever it is. And I'll cover that probably the next time on this channel. That'll be, I guess, what's today? Thursday? So probably Saturday. And we'll see if there's, I'll look this guy up and see if it's, and then I'll look up what he's saying here. There's all this reports of what's in chemtrails, barium and aluminum. And, not that I disbelieve it, but, I'm not sure about it. But that's, what people are saying that they've measured. And, this is just, I don't know, not good. But I want to talk briefly about affirmative action. Now, I understand the premise behind it because the system is rigged against some demographics more than others. As much as white people don't like the term white privilege or whatever it is, that they feel like they have some sort of advantage, you see that there are people that have advantages over you. People like Joe Biden, people like Donald Trump, and then just local people who are hooked in, families. There are people that have privileges and they have, the system is rigged in their favor. And then there is some obvious evidence, like, for example, a woman of color is 5 times more likely to get an abortion, which isn't an accident. People of color are being funneled into abortion clinics, and that's purposefully, for example. Or you can just see in, life expectancy and some of these other ways that some groups don't have as good a situation as other groups. And you could say, well, it's because they haven't worked hard enough or whatever reasons that you might have. But the people that you call the controllers, that, the rich people, the elite, people that you think have privileges over you, you don't, you complain about that, right? So there's that. But there is some systemic racism, systemic system rigging, and how do you fix it? Like in India, they have the caste system, And there was a young man there, kind of funny kid. My kids hung out with him. He's a little bit older than my kids. Back then, he was probably about 23, 24. And I was talking to this guy, and he said that he had to lie about his caste. He was a Brahmin caste. The Brahmin caste, especially in the south of India, is very favored. And they do well in education and politics and religion, these types of things. They have a sort of like, leader, educator, scholar type of, these are the jobs that they do, doctors and engineers and other things like that. So they're very, successful in the Indian system. But he said that he would have to score a perfect score to get into universities or whatever. The system was so skewed against his caste, trying to fix things, which I understand because his caste system is completely effed. But there's issues with that, and these kids who are growing up in these families, educated families, they're predisposed to doing well. And these things, the tests are rigged in their favors in various ways, and the system is, and the fix isn't working, right? Because now they're making it almost impossible for, people are going to have to lie about their caste or change their last names or do whatever to get around it. Like that's, it's not a good fix. But what I was going to say on top of that is, whenever you favor a group, and you see this a lot with trans people, which I've been talking about on both my channels. This came up with this young woman, whatever her name is, the swimmer. And when you favor a group, which you see that the trans people are getting a lot of publicity, a lot of, favorable articles, a lot of people defending them. And when you single out a group and give them more than other groups, a demographic, you target that group. It just, it sparks jealousy and hatred. And there's a lot more negativity towards this group of people on the internet and in general because of these, these privileges and things that they seem to be getting. And when you force something on people like this, there's a counterforce. And they know this. Like they know this, the people controlling the system. They're setting this group up for a lot of, negativity. And even worse, like, whatever it escalates. And they're doing it for a reason. Like it's not, they know what's going to happen. People are getting more and more hateful and resentful towards this group. And, you see this a lot. And so, there's sometimes, you need to do something to fix systemic rigging of the system against people. And also, there's ways that you have to go about it that don't, piss everybody else off, right? Like there has to be, some equity in the system. And right now there just isn't because, they're just paying they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like and they're doing this because they want division. They want hatred. They want people to be at war with each other because the system's going to collapse and they want people to be blaming on each other and not them. I mean, that's just one of many reasons. But anyways, force doesn't work and, we know that. Like the more force you use, the more there's a counterforce. Anyways, I got to wrap this up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.